the way, let's introduce our speakers, Jennifer and Jackie. Why don't you guys share a little bit about yourselves with the audience?
Jackie, do you want to go first?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to present this important topic to you, which we feel is very important in our role here. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving last week as well. My name is Jackie Boyd, and I'm an HR business partner here at Tandem HR. I joined the PEO world in 2010, working as a payroll representative, which ultimately helps me find my passion and perfect fit for HR. I specialize in employee relations, compensation and benefits, training and development, and performance management. Relationship building comes naturally to me. It always has. I used to sit on people's towels as a kid at the beach and ask them to be my friend. And I'm very passionate about creating positive employee experiences and nurturing company cultures where both employees and businesses can thrive. I love being in the people business and consider it a privilege to help both our clients and our employees navigate their careers. So a little about me, I'm located in beautiful, sunny Central Florida, where I enjoy spending time with my husband, renovating our 1917 home, and being very active outdoors. Love hiking, spending time at the beach, all times of the year. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jackie. That's a tough act to follow. I'll do my best. So I'm Jennifer Bauman. I'm also an HR business partner at Tandem. I joined Tandem a little bit over a year ago. I come from a HR department of one, so this was a topic when this was initially brought to me that I thought I was very well suited for that. I come from a experience of over 20 years as being an HR department of one. And for me, I think client and customer employee engagement is really at the core of who I am as a person. So I obviously would love to help out anybody with any issues in that way and provide some insight. I am a PHR certified HR individual. And again, employee engagement is key. I have a big variety of experience in dealing with complex employee matters and educating yourself on how you're going to address those issues as a single HR person. So that's who I am, and I'll shoot it back to you, Marcus.
Awesome. Great intros. I'll be brief. I like to say I'm a recovering lawyer. I used to practice employment law for 7 or 8 years. I'm based in St. Louis. I've also worked on HR consultant as an HR consultant, as a compliance consultant, helping companies put together medical benefit plans that work for their company. So I kind of have dabbled around a little bit, and I like to be a part of like where the decisions are made in HR and where the rubber hits the road. And that's what I love about HR and what I love about working with companies that are in that space. So let's go ahead and kick us off here. So we got a couple questions before the webinar started from the people who've registered. But let's start with one of the first big broad questions, which is the topic of this webinar, resources for an HR department of one. And I guess my question is, why are we assuming that there is an HR department of one? Why is it an HR department of one? So Jackie or Jennifer, do you want to kick us off with that?
Sure, I can start. HR, I really feel, I've talked about this with many colleagues in my career. HR can be taken for granted, especially with smaller employers. They are focused on their business. They're focused on building their business. They're not focused on the people of their business and retaining those people as much as they are as building and making the money. That's what they're there for. So I truly feel HR can be taken for granted. So that really puts an owner or even someone else in a different role, maybe an operations role, in a position that they now have to do HR if problems, or it doesn't even have to be problems, policies, problems, if anything arises.
Yeah, I think the assumption that even though that person might have that HR title, every manager, supervisor, executive leadership person has a role in HR. So really it's a shared responsibility across the board for a company to ensure that you're doing the right things for your workforce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, sometimes I think, like you said, Jackie, people get into small businesses, they start businesses because they're business people, they have ideas. And sometimes I think the HR and business owners talk different languages. And so if you're a business owner, you're probably thinking about, well, what is the return on HR, right? If I have an HR person, here's what they cost. Man, they're not revenue generating or this or that. So they look at it as an expense. And I don't agree with that, but I do think it's true that if you're looking at HR, the returns from an HR department, the return on an investment in HR doesn't just jump off the balance sheet. It's not something that you can say like, oh my gosh, HR made us this much money or HR, saved us this much money. It doesn't scream that. So I think there's probably an opportunity for HR professionals to kind of key into that a little bit and like talk about and kind of puff our chest out a little bit about how we're actually saving the company money or protecting the company a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess a follow-up to this is I think I've seen that play out for years and years. Do either of you think that dynamic is changing at all?
I do. I'm seeing in my career, I'm seeing it taken a little more seriously. I think a lot of this is coming from employees and employees, not joining a company because maybe they don't offer good medical benefits. That's a part of it. That's an HR function, going out there and shopping and getting in the market and looking at the best benefits for your company. Other demands, hey, morale's important. You can have a bad morale within your company. One person can really be a downfall to everyone else. And hey, we're not working with this guy. We're leaving. So not having that HR face there, I think owners are really starting to see that they can't retain their employees. Small and medium-sized businesses. I've seen large businesses without a true HR representative, and it can start out well, but potentially turn into a landslide. So yes, I do think it's changing. I think it's mostly post-COVID that this is changing, and employees are starting to take care of themselves, which is important. And having those boundaries of this is what I need to be successful.
Yeah, plus the generational values that are changing with workforce, new younger folks coming into the workforce who value things differently than other segments. And also just even the fact that we're now calling it people, right? We're kind of getting away from calling it HR. It's more people operations. So we're
Right.
adding more of that, touchy-feely aspect to it, right?
Yeah, I agree on both fronts. I think post-COVID, it's changed a little bit. Mental health has been introduced into the workplace a little bit more, which can be a little tricky, as HR professionals know. But I think people maybe expect a little more from their workforce or from their employer. They expect a little more flexibility. And you're right, Jenny, it's different generations expect more, right? It's not just a paycheck in exchange for work anymore. People want to, especially younger generations, want to really believe in what they're doing, and they want a purpose from what they're doing.
Well said.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of a follow-up to that, we had a question come in. So in a small organization, how can HR establish an executive presence and be perceived by a leader by both employees and their managers? So one of you want to kick us off there?
Yeah, I think it's important for the HR professional in the organization to make sure that they're embracing of what the company values, mission statement, what the strategic plan might look like for the business, and not be sedentary in their role, right? Like, I think you need to develop a plan, an HR plan. You need to be vocal about it. You need to be a presence. You need to be engaging again with leadership, also with the employees, really push those HR and people agendas forward and make sure that they're aligning with the business objectives and really highlight what the importance is of that department and yourself, you're in your role.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking in CEO speak, right? Monetary value. what are we bringing to the table? Are we invited to that executive table? You know, show that monetary value and recruitment strategy and retaining your employees. You know, looking at how much an employee turnover costs. One hourly employee can cost you up to $1,500. So just think of different positions and executive positions. If you have a high turnover in your executive department, that's even more. So retention is very important to me personally, but I think it's something that could, you know, basically sell your CEO on an HR department.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this question to me is that there can be, varying degrees. How much is HR valued now? How much are they invited to the table? But you're right. I think cost of turnover is a natural, like, entryway into making HR a part of strategic decisions. Because you're right, cost of turnover is huge. You can calculate it. I mean, of course, you have to make some assumptions, but you can calculate it. What's our vacancy rate? How long does it take to interview? How long does it take to onboard? Who has to cover in the meantime? You can take all those things into account and come up with a number that shows, hey, this is what I'm estimating as the cost of turnover.
Right.
And then there may even be an opportunity for HR to maybe push some shared responsibility to operations and talk about, like, you know what? We're talking about the time it takes to get someone ramped up to being proficient. Are we measuring productivity, operations team? Like, if we're not, we should be, because that's an important part of, how a business operates. So I think it's talking in numbers, talking in CEO speak or CFO speak, and talking about the things that are important to them.
Right.
I think it's interesting. I think of HR kind of as the sharp end of the spear, right? Because anything a business does, virtually anything a business does, it's going to have to be done by employees.
Mhm.
So, employees aren't software programs. You can't just direct them to, hey, we're going to take this hill. We have to think about how we can motivate and encourage and support and, develop people. So all of those things, I think, need to be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off of that,
Mhm.
working with operations on managing and mentoring and developing their people
Yeah.
into the best that they can be. HR can help with that. HR, think of us as, that extension of help and empathy when it comes to managing
Yeah.
your employees.
And hopefully
Yeah.
decreasing the liability of poor management or poor supervision, right? Making sure that they're doing things in a compliant way that's going to
Absolutely.
protect the
Exactly.
business going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So our next question, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I think it just kind of flows naturally. How can an HR department of one develop a strategic mindset to align HR initiatives to overall business goals?
Well, I think I mentioned that earlier, developing your strategic HR plan to make sure that it's in alignment with the business goals and plans. I think having conversations with executive leadership to find out what matters most to them and kind of piggybacking on that and making a parallel plan so that, again, you can prove that worth and that value for HR and prove that employee retention is valuable to the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where my mind went there, Jenny, sorry, Jackie, to jump in.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
If the company's going to grow, hey, if our plan is we're going to grow, I think a natural thing that, maybe your business leaders aren't thinking about is, well, how are we going to hire to meet that demand? And if we're saying we want to be here by the end of the year, that means we're going to need X amount of people. And we know that just hiring someone and bringing them in, they're not going to be, exactly what we want from day one. Probably there's going to be a ramp up time. So HR can start to build. I think this is what you're talking about. The strategic business plan is to grow, but what's the HR plan to support that? Well, if we want to be here by the end of the year, we need to start hiring now, or we need to start hiring some at this point, some at this point, some at this point, so that we can meet the demands as we're ramping up.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jackie, I cut you off.
No, you basically stole the words out of my mouth. It's
Oh,
having that strategic value in the beginning and goal setting and working with the executive team and your CEO on, hey, where do you see us in the next year? Where do you see us in 10 years? That's important. And finding out where you can show your value of, hey, this is what we've done in the past, researching your 5 years of being in business, but and here's where you're going if we stay there, or hey, this is where we're going if we don't stay there. So I completely agree. Being strategic, goal setting, working closely with the ownership is important.
And I think approach is important as well. Not being a traffic cop in those meetings, like, wait, we can't do that. We don't have the right people. I mean, sometimes an HR person's job, as we all know, is to tell a company, no, you do not pass go. You cannot do this. But I think if you're trying to get engagement, you're trying to be a part of the strategic team, maybe offering more guidance, or like, well, have we thought about this, or have we thought about this way of doing it? So not so much a no, but a redirect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think opening up someone's mind to a different view set of, you've
Mm-hmm.
been doing it this way, but have you ever thought of it this way is important,
Right.
letting people see, a lot of people don't like change, and that's okay. But if you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's always my goal. Let's look towards that light and let's work towards it together.
Mm-hmm.
Don't always be the no person, be the problem solver, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, Jenny, the strategic plan, the company's strategic plan, the HR strategic plan. One thing I've worked with some small businesses on is trying to define like metrics, companies, and that's not a natural skill for some people. Like I'm more of like ideas and concepts, but if we can distill that into, well, what does that mean like day to day? What does that mean from a metric standpoint? How can we track? How do we know if we're going to get on the right track?
Mm-hmm.
And then what I've seen some small businesses do is actually take those metrics and assign them to people. So, if we want to accomplish, new sales, okay, well, sales leader, this is your metric. That's what we're going to be able to tell if we're accomplishing our goals and if you're accomplishing your goals. So this is your metric to pay attention to, and you need to move that number in the right direction. So there's a book that talks about this. I think it's called Traction. It's about the EOS Entrepreneurs Operating System. But it really goes into depth about how to do that. And I think that's a way for HR to maybe flex a little bit and say, hey, based on what we're doing, these are the metrics that I would suggest. And because of our org structure, I think it makes sense this person needs to own that metric, and let's set up a cadence to check in on that. But some of that gets into just performance management, right? And helping the managers connect the dots there.
Yep. Coaching is important in the management world, and HR would definitely be an extension of that. And like you said, working together, assigning these tasks to management or directors and having them work together on an ultimate goal, because you have to ask the question, why are we all here? Whatever business it may be, why are we here? We're all here for the ultimate goal.
Yeah. So one question we got from a person who registered is, I am an HR department of 1 and I need more support. If we had $1, right? What's a simple example of places I can go for more support or to hear ideas on what's going on in HR?
With both Jackie and ooh, these are good.
Yeah.
These are good.
Yeah. I think SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, is a great tool. You can view a lot on a free basis. You can join and become a member. If you become a member, you can also become a member of a local chapter. I think increasing your network, even outside of your business, and connecting with other like-minded HR professionals is key. Having that village, right, of people that you can refer to and bounce things off of. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. LinkedIn is another great site where you can go and view a lot of information. I'll defer to Jackie. I'm sure Jackie has some good suggestions. If
Yeah,
you know, if you
just to
wanna-
piggyback off of right there, LinkedIn, one of my favorite resources. It's real people discussing real topics. And I have, in my career, I have personally used blogs to help coach some of the clients I've had, and they're wonderful. So LinkedIn, absolutely a great resource. And partner, collaborating with a team. HR, it's not straightforward. I've discussed this with so many people of, you never know what the day is going to bring. You never know what's going to happen in your workplace. So collaborating with other people, it's okay not to know the answer right away, but going to a team and collaborating, or using resources such as SHRM. SHRM is great for policies and job descriptions and talking points.
Right.
We're not all built to have these talking points set up, but doing that type of research on the back end with the resources available to you, I think is best.
Right.
Yeah, I think a good source for blogs are law firms. And when I was practicing, gosh, that would have been what, 2013, 2014, we started a blog and it was about employment law. And the idea was just to kind of write about things that were happening. And they're free, they're out there. You don't limit that. I think law firms look at it as a way for them to demonstrate knowledge and maybe attract clients.
Yep.
But they put generally speaking, they put out really good stuff. A lot of them do it. Some of them even have, free conferences that they put on, kind of as a service to their clients and a way to attract new clients. There's another resource I would go to from time to time. As far as I know, it's a free service. It's employmentlawhandbook.com. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at that or not. I found I've had to double check a couple things I find there, but it's a good place to get started, to just see what's out there.
Yeah, I think the key is, I'm sorry. No one person knows everything, right? There's
Yep.
always an opportunity every day to learn something new in the HR field. So don't be afraid to lean on people, lean on your vendors, lean on, acquaintances, network, and just be able to be open to asking those questions.
Right. And really having empathy and that connection with your internal staff, talking to them, seeing what they want, what they need, and going from there and collaborating with other HR professionals of how do we make this happen in this type of industry? How do I make people that have been here 10 years that are ultimately unhappy, how do I make them happy? So I really think people are the most important resource when it comes to adding value to an organization.
That might be the best thing I feel about joining Tandem, going from the independent HR role into a team, is having that team of colleagues and peers and leadership to really like-minded folks. That's been amazing, right? So find your village.
Yes.
Yeah. That's I guess in a little inside baseball, like we have a Teams chat that is just always open, and we'll see questions in there throughout the day, most days. Like, has anyone dealt with this? Has anyone dealt with this? So if I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're an HR department of one, don't feel bad that you don't know all the answers, because that's what this team does all the time. And we don't know all the answers. Like we crowdsource things and have to research things on a daily basis.
Yes.
So
Yes, we do.
yeah. So that's maybe a good segue into the next question about some good HR organizations to get involved with.
So I think, again, what I mentioned earlier, SHRM, go to LinkedIn. There are a ton of HR groups within LinkedIn that you can find, that you can join. Networking, there might be local networking organizations that you can join as well. Talk to other companies, maybe reach out to a colleague that you know that might have other resources that they can also refer to you as well. Lean on your vendors. If you have a broker for your insurance, use them. So there's a lot of resources available.
Right. And, you know, obtaining your PHR or your SPHR, your certifications, there's a lot of studying that goes into that, a lot of studying, but there are classes. There's some colleges, some local community colleges and other types of classes, online classes. I've even found some videos that you can watch online. I think, I can't reference the name right now, but there are Udemy is a good website. It's a kind of a learning website that they will train you on HR for the certification. So I agree. There's plenty and plenty of resources out there that can help you be the best you can be in your HR department.
I think going back to something you said, Jennifer, about kind of find your village, just it's been my experience that HR professionals are very open to collaborate, to share advice, and we're empaths. We love to understand things and help people. That's why we're in this field. But even if you find people on LinkedIn and set up like a regular cadence, I have a couple people that I check in with. They don't have anything to do with the business. I'm not asking them for business. They're not asking me for business. It's just once a month. Hey, how are you doing? What are you working on? Oh, here's what I'm working on. Just bouncing ideas off. I get a lot of good stuff from that. Yeah. So here's another question we got from a person who registered. I'm spending so much time on the day-to-day HR tasks. How can I streamline the processes and save time?
One
Any
of my
ideas
favorite. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, one of my favorite is leaning on our vendors. You know, we have plenty of vendors available to us for vendors that we can resource HR help from, something that for performance management. That is one of my favorite, because it's hard to formulate questions for especially a larger organization of how do we rate our managers? Can our managers, or I'm sorry, can our employees also rate our managers? We have a performance management program that streamlines that for you and makes it so much easier in the HR world.
Yeah, performance management can be a painful process, as we all know, right? And I think utilizing technology to help you become more efficient, and that overarching message would be, don't be afraid of technology. Use organizational tools and HR tools that you might find available to you to make it. You're going to have a list of 5 things you want to get done every day. You're probably going to get to one, if one at all.
Right.
But having those tools in your toolkit and your toolbox will help you keep more organized.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yeah, vendors, brokers, who provides services to your organization that touch on the employee experience, right? You got
Right.
work comp carrier, work comp broker, probably. Same thing with employee benefits carriers, employee benefits brokers. You may have, I don't know if you have like an HR outsourcing outlet, your payroll company, 401k provider. Maybe they can help with some of the paperwork or some of the employee education.
Mhm.
You don't know until you ask. And in my experience, it's very common for those questions to come up as part of that relationship. I think those types of vendors are always looking for ways to add value. And I guess just something to keep in mind as if you do start reaching out or leaning on them for a little bit of support. One challenge you might face is just getting everyone aligned, all the different vendors, getting them aligned to what you want. As the HR department of one, it's really up to you to set the agenda and set the priorities, and then get them aligned. But that may be a challenge, and hopefully it's not. But that may be a challenge just as you deal with multiple parties.
Right.
Right.
And going back to brokers, benefit brokers, that benefits are so important to employees. And like I mentioned earlier, and having benefit brokers, hey, you don't, as an HR professional, do you have time to coordinate a meeting and answer questions about benefits for your employees? Benefits is a hard topic, understanding what co-insurances and what a deductible
Yeah.
means. And these are hard topics. And in my past, I wish these things were taught in elementary school. Because ultimately we're all going to deal with them one day. And
Mhm.
having a benefit broker partner with you and come in and have learning sessions for your employees is so valuable. I've seen this work. I've seen the partnerships and the relationships build. And not only are you helping your employees, but you're helping build a relationship with your company and this brokership. So hopefully it lasts for years and years. And instead of, just kind of a reach away and not having
Yeah.
that collectiveness.
Yeah. What about to streamline things? What about using like templates or doing things that can autofill? Do you guys do that at all? And if you do, what are some things that you might use that for?
Yeah, well, I think Performance Manager is a good example of that. There are some forms that you can create to make it more of a streamlined process. I think that you can get into the weeds with forms, making it must do this, must do this. So you need to have some flexibility with that. But having a framework and a process established and saying, this is how we're going to handle performance management, but be flexible in that way, also educating your employees. So what's the adage, teaching a man to fish, right? You can give them a fish or teach them how to fish. So educating your employees to become more self-managed and more understanding of how the process works, and developing kind of a core structure of, if you want to change a benefit, this is what you do, and develop a pathway for those employees.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here at Tandem, we do have a lot of forms that are put in place for our clients. And that's something I've really appreciated because it streamlines everything and it keeps everything set, termination forms. Oh, we're terminating this person because a termination form, you can streamline the reasons for termination that
Mhm.
will align with policies and rules and laws.
Yeah. Yeah, just things that come to my mind, like offer letters, job descriptions, obviously. Some, parts of that will have to change, but that doesn't mean you can't have a template for the rest of it. Severance agreements are a
Yep.
great one, if you do those, just because those
Extremely
are,
important. Yeah.
yeah, it's, why I look at it unique each time. So yeah, but the point's a good one that, you can have the forms, but just, I think you also have to understand that they're not gonna cover everything all the time. That
Right.
Right,
that even though you have them, you're gonna have to tweak them a little bit as you go
Mhm.
right.
for each unique situation. Let's see, I've got two more questions, and then I want to open it up to our participants. So if you're listening, feel free to send us any questions that you might have. So second to last question is, in today's digital age, how can HR professionals leverage technology to streamline processes, empower employees, especially when they're operating with limited resources? What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think there are a lot of free resources. You can do a simple search on the internet and you can find a lot of free. Again, I feel like if you don't ask, you don't get. So again, asking those vendors that we mentioned earlier, if they have any free type of tools or any resources that they can allow you to utilize, I think is important. I think that, again, leaning on your professional network and asking, I have a problem with X. Do you have a resource? Getting referrals from other folks is also a key.
Yeah, definitely. I think that using employee portals and apps and things to digitalize their experience within the company, it makes it easier. Everyone's got a phone. I've got a phone right in front of me. I can log in, see my paycheck. I can see my benefits. I can ask maybe internal questions. Email my HR representative if I have a concern. I really think we live in a digital world now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we work in a world that it is digitalizing before our eyes, and something that, more recent to me that I am starting to take in is AI. AI is playing an important part in businesses now and streamlining processes. And while it's not a replacement, it's a helpful tool.
Yeah. So AI, I've talked to people who use it for different things, just generating drafts of letters or emails or communications. I've talked to someone who uses one called Claude AI. It's a website, but the way they use it is they will load all the resumes that if they're interviewing, load all the resumes to Claude and ask it to give them, you know, interview questions and brief summaries of all the applicants, so that they don't have to sift through them one by one. But I think that's a good point. It's a tool, but it's not a replacement. I don't know if we'd want it to be a replacement, to be honest. When I was thinking about this question, though, I thought about just how much more I interact with people now through Teams, through Zoom, through whatever. And and part of that's a pandemic thing. I think, we'll be writing books about, well, we won't be, but we'll be seeing books and like documentaries about how COVID changed this aspect of life or that aspect of life for as long as we're alive. But that to me, that's one that really stands out is, connectivity in a workforce is kind of an HR challenge that was made much more difficult after COVID because everyone is everywhere. So how do you do that, right? I mean, you have the tools of, well, we can get on a Teams call or we can get on a Zoom call, but what's that tell me? Like how do we, it's almost like, how do you use the tool more effectively, right? Do we have a regular meeting cadence? Do we have cascading meetings? Do we, and sometimes you get like Zoom or Teams fatigue. I mean, I know I do. What needs to be a Teams meeting, what can be an email. I think employee portals are really valuable. The Tandem, we redid ours about a year or two ago. Partly for that reason that like, it just, if you have things in resources, in file folders, or, like the Windows, like Document Explorer, like where to find it. I mean, imagine a new person coming into an organization and like, well, where's this? Well, that you got to go over here and that you go over here. Like, let's put it all in one space. It's all in, all in our employee portal. I think, hard to measure, but this is the same. We all see the same thing, right? That's a very subtle and very powerful way to get everyone on the same page is, hey, every time when I open my browser, I'm seeing the same thing as Jackie, who's in Florida. I'm in St. Louis, and Jennifer, who's in Chicago. Like we all see the same thing. So to me, that's a tech solution to a very old HR problem.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important for the HR professional to embrace that technology and be the champion to their employees, really to help educate them again. I think it only adds, it can be scary. Change is scary for everybody. People don't typically want to embrace that, but it's here and it's always evolving. Look at AI where it's at now. So I think we have to, as HR professionals, embrace and figure out how we can adapt that to the workforce that we're our audience, basically.
Right. As seeing is believing, showing your employees, some, like you said, may be receptive and some may not. Change can be scary, but in the wake of COVID, I know my role went from on the road 5 days a week to 100% at home. And that's a big change. That's, of course, yay, we're home, we're working, but how do I manage this? How do I manage this process? How do I manage my employees working from home? And truly is my entire workforce a work from home workforce. I have several clients that I'm working with on benchmarking who's working from home and how many days a week, and do they have a hybrid work policy? Factory workers, of course, they have to be in the factory. But how do we leverage when it comes to employees looking at that, how do we leverage the fairness in that of, oh, they get to stay home, but it's not always easy because you don't have the people. maybe for someone who doesn't like being around people, sure, it's great. But how,
Yeah.
I know I like to have, the partnership and the collaboration of people around me. So there are
Yeah.
days that can be hard, but helping your workforce through that and mentoring and having, fun events online, even, when you do your meetings and having,
Mhm.
maybe twice a week town hall meetings to show you that your organization is working towards the ultimate goal that everyone should be working towards, or having fun
Yeah.
events during those meetings just to have everyone collaborate together.
Yeah, going back to an earlier question, how does HR get a seat at the table in these strategic meetings? Like, I think it's by digging into this and like coming
Mhm.
up with, hey, here's how we should be utilizing technology to manage our workforce. And there's probably like tons of opportunities um, for coaching managers on how to do this. I mean, I remember in COVID, going from an in-office environment to everyone's out of the office, and
Mhm.
how do we do it? And the questions kept coming up, like, well, how do I know, how's that going to work if someone works from home? Like, well, is the work getting done? Right? I mean, to me, that's like a baseline question. Is the work getting done?
Right.
Well, I don't know. Well, how don't you know? Are you not setting clear expectations? Like, it may be harder to manager, or you may have to step your game up a little bit. Because to me, if you're like, well, I don't know if work is getting done, well, then maybe you're not setting clear expectations.
Right.
So let's do that. Do you have daily check-ins with your employees? If not, you're going to have to do that instead of just walking around and seeing people and stopping by and, hey, how's it going? And you get a cup of coffee. You're going to have to be more intentional and set one-on-one meetings or have, group meetings, right? But you got to create that structure. And I think
Right.
it's just natural for the HR person to step in and kind of fill that void. And maybe they can, lean into other, like management systems too, like,
Mhm.
I don't know Slack, but Slack, or like I know Monday.com. Like, how do we take the work that we're doing and get it out of, like, well, I haven't gotten an email from them, so I haven't gotten an email from this employee today, so either they're not working or they're dead or they're sick, or I don't know what's going on. Like, well, if we work out of a different platform, I can see what you're doing. I can see,
Right.
what progress you're making, and I can just go into that document and give you feedback on it. I mean, again, depending on what you're doing, but
Right.
I think, this is an area for like HR professional to brainstorm and like, again, old HR problem. How are we managing, the employees on a day-to-day basis? New HR solution, like, well, here are some tech platforms that
Right.
might enable you to do that. And these are
Right.
tools to help you accomplish the goal.
That you read my mind. That was exactly what I was thinking was, implementing programs that can measure productivity. Here
Yeah.
at Tandem, we work with Salesforce, and it's my
Mhm.
first experience in working with Salesforce. We have other platforms that I've used that are also attached to us,
Yeah.
client space, but measuring productivity and seeing, our emails come directly through there, and it keeps us accountable. It keeps us,
Yeah.
other than an email, we all do it. We see an email, we go, I'm busy right now, I'm going to put that to the wayside.
Mhm.
This type of program keeps things in front of you, and it lets management see the productivity that is happening in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
that
Yeah, we
was
track response rates. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what COVID kind of forced us all to look at, is how we're going to manage that business going forward. Because as we know, many people did not go back to the office and won't go back to the office. So as an HR professional, you're going to have to really address that and figure out and partner with leadership to figure out how you're going to keep your employees productive.
Mhm. And happy.
Yeah.
So last question here, good discussion. Last question. I've heard of HR outsourcing. What does that relationship look like with a small HR department or an HR department of one?
Well, I'll
Who
tell
wants-
you from my personal experience, I wish when I was an HR one that, and I'm not going to be sales pluggy here, but I wish I knew about a PEO relationship, because it would have saved me so much time in my role and in my job. And I feel like coming here, that's one of the things that I love the most, is being able to to instead of download or upload, now I'm having that relationship with other clients. So leaning into vendors like that and just establishing a rapport, having a good resource to go to and have that relationship with has been key.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Jennifer. And it's nice to know you've been in that position before. You've been HR, party of one, and it is hard. It is hard to manage, your employees and your policies and your day to day. Now working in PEO as long as I have now, I've seen clients come in that have never worked with a PEO. It can be hard, to give that responsibility off and, oh, you're coordinating with my vendors now. You're coordinating with workers' comp or 401k or benefit. It's hard to, it's hard to trust ultimately, but I feel as a PEO, this is what we're here to do. I know I value every minute I spend with a client coaching or directing or having a simple conversation. Hey, call me up. Let's chat. Let's have a release to your day because it can be stressful. But I've seen people turn around and just go, Jackie, this was the best decision our company ever made. And that's a true story. Now, every situation, ultimately, companies can grow. They can outgrow a PEO and get everything internalized. That's okay. But we're here. I like to think of us as almost building blocks that can help a company especially get started and show you the value of having HR in place and having separate vendors in place and building those relationships.
Yeah, there's, HR outsourcing can take a lot of different forms. It can be just HR guidance support. You can have, administrative services only. You can have, even if you're in a PEO relationship, they're not all the same. PEOs do things differently. PEOs emphasize things differently. We at Tandem emphasize HR. That's really important to us. It kind of ties everything together for us. But if you're looking at PEOs, I would say just get a feel for how they operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's important to them, what they lead with. The other thing to know about, almost any PEO that you talk to is they're going to have different solutions available that you wouldn't get simply by if you went to like an HR consulting firm or an outsourced firm. PEOs can offer master work comp plans or master medical plans or EPLI plans or things like that are unique products that you don't get through other relationships. So just keep that in mind, I guess. Those are all the questions that we got, and we still do have, it looks like 11 minutes available. So here's
everyone.
Yeah, so please kick open that Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen and send us any questions that you might have. While you're doing that, just to tell you about who we are. So Tandem HR, as you may have guessed, is a full service HR outsourcing company. We are a PEO, a professional employer organization. So we coordinate work comp benefits, EPLI coverage, which is employer practices liability coverage. We have an EAP, an employee, oh gosh, I'm blanking on it. Assistance program.
One of my favorite things. Yes.
Yeah, not widely known, but so important.
Yeah. We do payroll for our companies. We do retirement services for them. So we try and bundle everything and put it in one place. So if that's something that you're interested in or that you want to learn more about, please don't hesitate to send me an email there. Not seeing any questions so far in our Q&A. So we can give it another minute or two and end early if we don't have any questions.
Something I just want to add that goes back to one of these questions, but when I consider myself, being a part of a PEO, a lot of times we are a HR party of one. We do have our team to collaborate with. So I don't fully feel that way, but there's a lot of days, we've got to mainstream and talk to clients. So it's very elementary, but something I always ask myself when I come into a situation or have to investigate is who, what, where, when, why, and how. Some of the most important questions you can ever ask in HR. If you can answer all those, you're on your way.
Right. A lot of it is
Yeah.
detective work, right? Like the
Yes.
digging in
Yeah.
and finding more, getting more of those specifics and really understanding the global situation and how it's going to affect the business and the employee.
Exactly. And thinking
Yeah.
outside the box on a lot of situations, like we said, not every situation's the same. So, you know, playing devil's advocate, thinking outside the box. Everyone's got their different style of management or managing employees, and that's okay. You know, whatever works for your organization is best. And finding out what that is, you know, getting feedback from your employees and seeing how things are doing. So another thing to add on, you know, allowing employees to be honest and open and to communicate feedback, I think is so important.
Agreed.
Yep. And I guess I'll give my parting shot since we don't have any questions. And that is kind of related to what both of you were saying, but I like to ask, you know, if I get a question about an HR matter, why are you asking this question? What prompted this? Because sometimes that may not be the right question. So I will frequently say, where's this coming from or how'd this come up? Before I want to answer it, because I want to know, you know, how you got to that point.
That's a good point.
Said all, you know, HR issues can be messy and they impact a lot of things. So
Absolutely.
well, thank you to everyone for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Hope you took something from it. Thank you, Jackie and Jennifer, for sharing your perspectives. I think we hit on a lot of issues that I think are probably familiar to people that work in the HR space, especially in the small business context. So again, if you want to chat after this webinar, please send me an email. And if you registered for it, you'll get the recording in your inbox. So thank you so much for joining. We'll do another one next month.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.